Andrii Shumada will do a talk about logging. We are moving away from front-end, from React to the back-end.
And React as well.
React on the back-end. That's amazing.
And the front-end, React Native.
Oh.
Back-end, React Native,
yeah,
everything.
Yeah. So React logs. Do you have JS6 plugin for your logging framework?
We don't need it.
Yes?
No, we don't need it.
You don't need it. You always need something inside JS6. That's the law.
No.
All right. Thank you, Andrii. Let's get started.
Woo! So, hi everyone. My name is Andrii Shumada. I work as a senior developer at company Debitur inside of Cyclum office. And today I'm going to talk about logs. It's something, so we have done logging the same way for like 3 or 4 years. And the way how we do it, it's kind of obvious for us. But when I'm hearing from others how they are doing logging and which problems they have, I decided, hey, okay, let's show how we are doing them, and maybe you'll find it useful for you. So what I'm doing, some time ago I was doing even PHP, a bit of Ruby Go. Right now I'm writing mostly Node.js and React, and right now we write application in React Native. And by the way, our React Native app is in production. Helping a bit with JavaScript framework days. And I have a few more projects, own projects like Tankly and Humans versus Zombies.kva, Ukrainian implementation of Humans vs Zombies. And my team is only 10 developers, and we are a Ukrainian Danish company. And 10 developers handling 4 web apps, 30 microservices. We have mobile and React Native, and almost 20,000 paying customers. So actually, why we need to do logs? Actually, this question, why, should start almost all talks at all conferences. Why we need it? Well, because our code is not perfect, right? And we're doing mistakes, and it's close to impossible to produce product without mistakes. Anyway, something will go wrong. Doesn't matter how many QAs you'll have. Your users will find a problem in production. That will always happen. So what events we should handle in our projects? Yeah, first of all, it's some obvious stuff like uncaught errors in front end. For instance, when you have problems with type references or something. We have mobile app in React Native. Also need to catch errors there. We have some problems in business logic. We have backend Node.js and also some expected and unexpected problems. And all of that should be tracked. So our infrastructure looks like something like this. So our apps are using mostly HTTP to contact our one web service, and it connects to some other web services either with HTTP or with message queue, for instance, RabbitMQ. And actually HTTP, it's a good layer to track some issues and some problems in your app. So normally guys that are developing web services, they're using HTTP codes. And what they usually mean that 200 and 300, it means everything is okay. 400 client fuck up, 500 service fucked up, and we need to log it on a different sites. So for instance, if a user in web app trying to enter some bad data and tries to send it to our server, server should return 400, and it should not track it because that's problem of client. He did something wrong. And on client, sometimes you have your own form, your own validations, and you should try not to send bad data to server. But sometimes even 400s are expected problems on your clients. Yeah, for instance, if you're trying to sign up with email that already exists, right? So you can't check this error in your client. So you need to send requests and get error and do some stuff after. How we are doing login, what we are adding in our login objects. So obviously we are tracking such things as timestamp, so we can get errors for a specific period of time. We have service name. So this structure of log is common for all our services, all our applications. So I'll show you what benefits we'll have later. But for now, let's just go through the structure. So we are tracking response time. For some reasons, it was 2 milliseconds. Our Node.js is insanely fast, I think, if it's not a fake number. Yeah, some roads, some URLs, and status codes that are very important. And maybe we can track some headers and some stuff that users send us. And obviously user ID and maybe some message from error code or something. And also if we have error, we can also send even a stack of this error with some codes, HTTP codes, and with severity. So when we are tracking some logs, right, we should also say how severity is. So if it's a real problem, so we have 3 levels of severity, like info, warning, and error. So on some of them, you should react, and it's like expected problem or expected inconsistency, and some of them are unexpected, and you should track that. So what you should not log? You should, in your object, you should not log passwords. For instance, if user tries to sign up with emails that already exist and with passwords, yeah, for us, we want to track all the requests, right, to see what is the problem. But we should remove these passwords and some tokens and some personal sensitive data from our logs. Yeah, and signatures, it's something that we add into URL. So our servers can communicate between each other in an open environment, and we can put some signature into URLs so we are using some secret code that only this server knows, and we can add some signature to URL to verify that that's our server sends this request. So how to secure this sensitive data? Obviously you should go through all your objects and your log objects and find these fields. So instead of writing your own implementation of recursive going through the object, I recommend you to use a model that is called traverse. That it has some methods called map. So obviously you can check each node of this object and do some changes of it. The full example how we are securing our log objects, you can be found on the GitHub. And I'm just going to show an example how we can implement this sanitize function for one object. So we can check if it's and object, and if field of name includes sensitive names like passwords or token, we can update this value of this field with, for instance, with 3 stars. So as far as you can see, 4 lines of code, and more or less you can secure your object from sensitive data. But that's not it. There's a lot of things you need to know when you're trying to log some random object into your login system. So you should not try to stringify all the things you have in your object. For instance, some objects can contain buffers. Often you can have circular objects into your objects. For instance, if you'll try to log requests or response objects in Node.js, they have circular references for sure, and it's impossible to stringify. Out of box, you can just do console log and response, or trying to stringify it. So you should handle it by hand. There is no sense to log some big amounts of data, like big strings, and there is no sense to log some super deeply nested objects. So usually 5 levels is enough. And some of objects have method toJSON from different classes, so you should check if they have this method toJSON. It's better to use toJSON before you stringify your object. So we have a lot of errors in our application, and we have 20,000 users, and they're producing a lot of errors, and some of them are random, some of them are not, and you can't react on each of them. because our services are dependent on some other services, right? And sometimes it could be network issue, and I don't know, maybe someone didn't reset their browser cache, or there could be some super random problems. So on which errors you should pay attention a lot. So first of all, it's all uncaught errors. That means that usually uncaught errors are happening when you are trying to access some property of your object that is not defined or something. So for these errors you should pay attention for sure, and these errors will happen to all of users, and the faster you'll get them and the faster you'll be notified about them, the better it is for your app. Everything that touches money and payments also you should get notification as soon as possible. For instance, if user paid for your app, so he paid money for iTunes for your React Native app, or to PayPal, and PayPal send us callback. And in that scenarios, if we have a problem, we should be notified and react. And of course, there could be some common problems, but if they're affecting a lot of users, you should also be notified about that. So let's talk about log services, what we are using and what we've tried. So we've tried Opbit as a log service for front end. So it has some front end specifics. But we ended up with Track.js for tracking our web apps. I'll talk a bit more about it later. For backend, we are using log entries, and we tried before Logstash, and we're also using a bit Papertrail that has one-click integration with Heroku. So I don't think it super matters which of them you'll use, but the point is you should have one service, or I don't know, one service for backend login and one for front-end login, because front-end login has some specifics. So let's talk about log entries. So here we put all our logs, and what are the benefits? That we can query this data for some parameters. For instance, tenant is something that we call, let's say it's account ID, so we can find all related logs from different services specifically for these users, specifically for this time, and we can see how often he was doing requests, or if we'll filter these logs for specific error, we can see how often he saw this error. Track.js we're using for front end, so it has some good filters. For instance, highest impact, so it already calculates how many users were affected by your exact problems. It can give you your last errors and errors that are quite important, and number of them is increasing. Yeah, and top messages overall. So some of them can come up from some plugins or browser extensions. So you also can't react on all of them, but you should pick errors that have more users affected. Also, one good feature of Track.js that you can actually see what user was doing in your front-end app that leads to error. So, for instance, user was inputting in this text field 5 characters, and he pressed button save. So we've sent HTTP request, and possibly in response we've got this error. It helps a lot, and you can see what user was doing and what was clicking. And actually, it's quite framework agnostic. So it doesn't matter if you have React, Backbone, or Angular, or Vue, or whatever you like right now. So it will give you exact clicks on HTML elements. So the question is how not to miss important logs if they're happening. So first of all, we have a screen in our room, and we have a list of all errors from both login systems. I'll talk a bit more later. So, but the point is that errors will be near our eyes, and well, it's easier to see errors when they happen when the screen is near. And you can always see and track what's wrong. So we also can send our errors to Slack channel. So LogEntrance has integrations with Slack. So we'll see which service was affected. As far as you can see our mobile app here, and our API service is also here. And it's quite an important number here. It's frequency, of course, so we can see if it's a random problem or not. We also have our own service called dbtourtail that grabs logs both from log entries and from track.js. So we can get here all information from all our login services. So we have, it's important to have logs in JSON so we can do some queries and we can aggregate some log information, and we can see some important metrics like how frequent is errors, how many users they affected, how long is this error happening, and of course which services and so on. And also we built some cool features like 2 buttons take and resolve. So if you're looking at this problem, there is no sense for us, the developer, to look at this problem. So you can press take button and it will say, okay, this error is investigated by one developer. No need to look for someone else. And you can see we have quite a lot of warnings, but most of them are more or less expected, right? And yeah, these 2 errors are not affecting only one user, and probably it will be quite hard to reproduce this problem if it affects only one user. But if it affects 12 users, that means that we should definitely take a look at that. Also, one good feature of LogEntrance, it's email alerts. So how would you know that your app is slow? So most of you know about some metrics from New Relic. It has some metrics called AppDex score. So it combines the response time and average server load and so on. But here you can build your own alerts based on your needs. For instance, if you have too much of 400 errors, if you had too much of 500 errors, or in general your requests are going slow and your response time is more than 10 seconds, that's quite a lot, I think, so we can be notified with email. But that's not enough. Actually, it's quite hard to force developers to fix some problems. And even if we have screens, we have emails, we have errors in Slack channel, yeah, developers are more likely to miss it. So it's good to have manager, right? That you can rely on managers that he'll track all this stuff and will force developers to fix some things. But we ended up that it's quite disruptive for us to watch for the errors, for problems, for all the time. So we are releasing a lot. We have continuous delivery system, so we are releasing more than 20, 30 times a day. And we can't always look at the logs. And morning stand-up, it's a place where it's a good place to show the super important errors that should be fixed. So we also, so we're getting some important errors here into dbtour slides. So each stand-up, we have a bot that creates Google Slides and that puts some important information into our Google Slides. For instance, calendar for today, builds from TeamCity, and yeah, probably a list of important bugs. So that's all automated. And right now we're interested in errors, right? So we should care a lot about uncaught errors, some payment errors in payment systems, and so on. So we have like super important filters that grabs all of it and send us to slides. And here we can see which guys are responsible for exact service. So we already know whom to ask to fix this kind of problems. Yeah, because for these errors, frequency is quite high. Yeah, no uncaught error in this list, but here we are sure that this errors are important and we should fix them today. So obviously your login system cannot be the only one monitoring system, right? It's better always to have like duplicate system of track of monitoring a system, for instance, like New Relic, Pingdom. But in any way, if you'll miss these errors and problems, your customers will start calling you. So the faster you fix your problem, the better it will be for your company. In general, I think. I think that's it. Some links. These slides are available on Eagle-Eye GitHub.io. Login systems I mentioned today: Logentries, Track.js, Traverse to go recursively and change your object recursively when you're doing login stuff, and our filter, how we secure and log data from sensitive data, is open sourced. That's it from me. Thank you.
Questions?
I
Comments?
told it was obvious.
Где? О!
Thank you for your talk. And I have a question. For example, you have React Native app, and maybe it can works offline.
Yes.
And when you have some errors that was reproducing when app worked offline, will this app, send some pool of these errors to the server?
Yes, good question. So implementation of log entries in React Native. So actually, it's just a wrapper on native module from log entries to actual iOS application. So yeah, if app is offline, it puts some logs into your internal storage, and when you get online, it sends all the data to log entries service. So yeah, all the data will be logged.
Thank you.
Ready.
Это далеко.
Actually, I want to ask, you mentioned New Relic, why don't use it? And maybe you use Track.js, why not New Relic? Because you said it's like quite
We're
nice
using
one.
all of them. So New Relic is more web specific in general. So it doesn't allow you to store data in like a bunch of JSONs when you can after you can aggregate them and get some useful data. It's good for alerting you for general problems like app is slow, app is unavailable, app is down, and so on, but it's not so flexible in terms of aggregating logs. I don't think you can get some useful information from 15,000 logs in one day. But yeah, we're using it as well, but just for tracking that app is down or slow or not responsive. New Relic is pretty once now, okay, but the feature set of New Relic is not enough for us. We are using it as well, but not for logs.
Any more questions? Илья, ты хочешь вопрос задать? А что руку тянешь? Начинается. Андрей, видимо, тема очень скучная. Расскажи, пожалуйста, ты говорил, что у вас 30 микросервисов, еще что-то. Как вы делаете разбиение логов по environment? То есть у вас отдельные инсталляции этого log-entries, или у вас один log-entries обрабатывает все, и ви потім фільтруєте тегами каким-то образом?
Все розбито, в принципі, по environment, типу, весь продакшн йде в production log, типу, окремий це. Персонально в нас логи зі стейджинга в нас не попадають в в цей сервіс, нам достатньо логів з PaperTrail. Да? Ми хостимося на Heroku. Допустимо, нам достатньо зайти, подивитися якісь останні логи з останнього сервісу. Ну, якби ми робили, не знаю, вивід всіх логін зі стейджингу, у нас просто стейджингом мало хто користується. Там девелопери можуть деколи зайти. У нас, в принципі, весь стек піднімається локально, і кожному девелоперу достатньо логів локальних. Там потім ми можемо викотити на стейджинг, щоб показати, допустимо, менеджеру. І, в принципі, такої кількості помилок ваш менеджер, не знаю, ваші тестери, ваша, не знаю, принаймні наша компанія не може стільки не генерити, щоб нам необхідно було ще один, трекати помилки зі стейджинга окремо. Того у нас для стейджинга просто не піднято, але якби нам треба було їх підняти і трекати так само, то ми могли би їх просто слати з окремим полем environment, і тоді вже сервіс Log Entries міг би робити ще одну агрегацію, да, окремо по environment. Тут ще можна було б додати пару контролів, типу по environment, наприклад, всі, тільки staging, тільки production і так далі. Але цього ми використовуємо це тільки поки що для продакшну, і нам це поки що вистачає.
И у меня еще один вопрос, раз никто вопроса не задает. Скажи, пожалуйста, вот вы логи делаете в JSON, да?
Да.
Но есть какие-то сторонние, я не знаю, продукты, там Nginx, еще там что-то, да, какие-то штуки, которые пишут логи не в JSON формате. Вы их вообще не собираете? Или когда вы их собираете, конвертите вы их каким-то образом в JSON, или вы оставляете их текстом?
Ми, в принципі, з Nginx і цих всяких штук ми їх руками не трекаємо. Но якби нам прийшлось трекати std-out або std-error, в принципі, у нас були деякі задачі, коли нам треба було, коли ми, наприклад, підключаємо якийсь, наприклад, Phantom.js або ще щось, який не може нам, або якийсь сервіс там бінарний, який не може нам JSON вертати, ми можемо просто підв'язатися на std-error і по даті, по даних, які підписатися на івенти цього потоку, і по цих даних самим генерувати JSON з інформацією, яка нам необхідна. Наприклад, сервіс такий-то, да, там сервер name такий навіть, і потім в стрінгове значення засунути цей самий output. Тобто ми без стрінгу це все одно би засовували в JSON.
Спасибо. Any more questions? Oh.
Тут, коротше, трохи нубське питання. Наприклад, є там два клієнти, один в Америці, інший в Європі. І нам треба трекати час, коли відбулась помилка. Це буде, типу, трекатись в UTC на стороні сервера, щоб, ти розумієш, не було проблем.
Так, я розумію. Класика жанру – проблеми з часовими поясами. В принципі, ми можемо трекати, є два варіанти. Час може приходити нам з клієнта, час може трекатися сервером. На сервері нам це простіше. На сервері ми можемо сказати, що ми знаємо, що конкретно зараз це такий часовий пояс. Але, звичайно, що зручніше записувати все тільки в UTC і тільки в UTC. А потім вже самому виводити час, який зручний цьому користувачу. На datetime, хіба що нам час єдиний, коли ми можемо трекати з клієнта, це хіба що в випадку офлайн-логів, да? Коли в React-нативній аплікусі сталася проблема, тоді ми точно не знаємо, коли сталася помилка, бо логи можуть прийти пізніше, ніж ця помилка сталася. В всіх інших випадках ми отримуємо дані real-time і можемо з сервера прям брати час.
Дякую.
Все? Вопросов больше нет? Андрей, спасибо.
Здоров'я.
Тема про CSS волновала людей гораздо больше. Create React Srach был в Твиттере, да. У нас сейчас небольшой перерыв. Да, но очень короткий, и мы сразу начнем Lightning Talk, потому что Распопов, вы все понимаете.